Hey, this is Keena B, and welcome to Say Anything. Say anything.
Why can't you just say anything?
I'm gonna say anything.
People just say anything.
I swear, people just say anything. Welcome to Say Anything with Keena B. Hey, welcome to Say Anything with Keena B. I am Keena B. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, Charles and I will be talking about colorism. It has been a topic of controversy for eons, and I do mean eons. It has actually been trending for a second in this current place and time. But worldwide, colorism has been an issue for generations, and we're going to discuss it. So stick around. So, the actual term colorism was coined by the author Alice Walker in 1982. And the definition was discrimination based on skin tone. Now, in her definition, it was regarding people with fairer skin or lighter melanin, okay, having more advantages than those who were darker skinned. However, colorism, even if it was coined in 1982, existed way before colonialism. It predates enslavement. It has been across most ethnicities globally, and today you'll learn that it has been both for the fairer and the darker. Listen as we talk about colorism across the ages. Well, hello, Charles. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good. Today we are going to talk about colorism.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic.
It is an interesting topic. Have you ever felt like you experienced colorism?
Experience it? I don't know. I probably have, but it's something that you see around a lot. And it has also a lot of historic context. In present day, here maybe in places like Zambia, the mentality is preference towards like I don't know if it's preference what to call it, but there's a mentality that lighter is better. But some time back, as I reviewed I looked at literature that came from, let's say, West Africa. It was suggesting that way back in the day, the darker people were, the better they were considered. There were some other features they considered. So those are they didn't explicitly say that, but those are the hints I was getting from the way they were writing, that they preferred darker. So, but most of lighter is better, I think, started after the Europeans started coming to Africa, and usually they will be, they will know what to do with certain resources and will be more empowered than the locals. So because they were lighter skins, it started getting in people's minds that they are better than us. And some of it was deliberate. It was on purpose. They wanted people to think that. And it was also a way of doing divide and rule, where you find the people of the same race, you can't conquer them at the same time or control them at the same time. So you separate them by one side thinking they're better than the other one. Then when you create that rift, it weakens them. One good example is Rwanda and Burundi. you've heard about Hutus, Tutsis, even though what refers to as Hutu now or Tutsi, initially that's not what those terms were supposed to mean, but that's what they are referred to right now. So when the Europeans came, either, I think it was the Belgian or the Germans, they found two groups there. There is one group that has kind of silky long hair and pointed noses. So they figured that that group, because they were, slightly lighter with noses that looked like Caucasians, they favored them more and empowered them. They would, trade with them, teach them business skills, they would educate them so that they can be better than the rest of the folks that had flat noses and darker skins. That way, they're trying to create a narrative that anything closer to Caucasian is better. And they did that over time. And results showed the other group turned out to be more prosperous because they were favored by the people who were controlling the wealth and resources. So sometimes it's on purpose to make you think like that.
Well, just a little bit of a quick history lesson. Are notes that I gathered on colorism, that like in English literature during Shakespeare's time, fairness was used as a trope. And when you go back and you read like early literature, or at least 18th century, 17th century literature, and so on, Shakespeare, for example, would use fair to refer to physical attractiveness and moral virtue. So when they're using the word fair and associating it with skin tone, they're also saying, oh, hey, morally, this person is better. So like you were speaking to people having more education or knowledge or even resources. The literature during specific time frames would speak to moral character as well. And in romance, it would seem as being more attractive. Then conversely, they would, during Shakespeare's time, they would describe darkness as someone who has a bad character, negative qualifications, to want to basically, indoctrinate people into, when it comes to the reading and literature, that lighter was better, fairer, darker was worse. And you can even see it visually, like in Disney, for example. Let's take a favorite Disney movie, The Lion King. Mufasa was king, right? But he was a golden lion, right? Golden mane. So fairer, right? Yeah. Scar, his brother, had a darker mane, and even darker fur. Yeah. And he was the villain. Yes. Let's take The Little Mermaid. Ursula was purple octopus and wore a black garment. And Troy, her father, had this long white beard and tan skin. Now, sidebar, how was he tan in the middle of the ocean? Like, how was his skin able to be tan underwater? That always cracked me up. Okay, that always cracked me up. But anyway, and then Ariel was fairer with red hair. another sidebar, people with red hair used to be considered evil, associated with with the Irish.
Mm.
There's always something, and that takes me to how even in white cultures, pre-colonial societies, lighter skin was an indicator of social status. Okay, it was suggested that freedom from outdoor labor, because the fairer someone was, the less likely they were in the sun.
Yeah.
So therefore, they were richer, had a higher class. In Egyptian society, the same thing. Those who had fairer skin were considered to have a higher class or higher power structure, be higher because they were not enslaved or outside. Some cultures link skin tone to cultural values, like in the Hindu society. There was a preference developed for lighter skin because it was associated with spiritual purity. Now, I'm getting all this information from research online. Okay. This is not from my own personal knowledge bank. Now, not everything. Some things I have learned, but this particular, I'm learned like about the Hindu, I had not heard before. And just like you mentioned, pre-colonial, the Congo, darker skin was preferred. To the extent that babies were intentionally exposed to the sun to deepen their complexions.
Which is interesting because Congo now is the direct opposite. It has become, I would say, like part of their culture to be lighter, and it's skin bleaching is very common in Congo.
Oh, that's horrible.
In Zambia, skin bleaching is almost solely applies to women. It's very rare that very, 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 very rare that you find a man bleaching their skin. They just usually don't. Now in Congo, both would do it, women and men. It's become a part of the culture to bleach skin. Even those that are fairly light, they'll still apply something. So that's interesting that you say that they used to prefer darker. But it also in Zambia, I don't know who created that conception. There's been repeatedly talk that good men are dark and tall and all that. But that's a problem on its own because you're saying tall, not everybody's tall. So, yeah, but there's been a lot of talk of dark when it comes to men. So it's associated with good looking. So I guess Zambians probably have less incentive, and nobody talks about they have less incentive in bleaching the skin. But there's still a conception of lighter is better.
Well, it's interesting that you said about the dark-skinned tall man, and then the women are bleaching, because even in the U.S., what you'll see in advertisements, and you'll see it a lot, okay, it'll always be a dark-skinned man with a lighter-skinned female. They rarely put two dark-skinned people together. It'll it'll be a light-skinned female or a white woman, or a biracial woman, or someone whose looks are very indiscriminate. Like you cannot tell whether they're Latino, they're white, they're black. It's very indiscriminate. But they are still fair-skinned. And then a black man, a dark-skinned black man. Okay. And then these days, interesting enough, conversely, they'll put white men with black women, but they're usually not dark-skinned. They're still lighter skinned. They'll just put them together.
Okay.
In commercials.
Yeah.
It's and it's like, what is it that what is the agenda here? Like, why can't not to say, why can't two white people be in a commercial and be a couple? And why can't two dark-skinned black people or two light-skinned black people or but why does it constantly have to be? Because at first you're thinking, are they just trying to catch all their target audiences? Or are they...
That's what my initial thinking was, that they're trying to capture all audiences out there by mixing
But how?
different models.
I guess they think dark-skinned black women relate to dark-skinned black men in advertisements, but that's not the case
No,
all the time.
no, it's not.
It really isn't. Like, so you're not going to capture us just by putting one dark-skinned person on there. Like, I don't, that's a whole nother conversation, advertising. But it is interesting how it shows up, colorism, like the impact of colorism over time has led to self-hate. It has led to people having discrimination in the workplace. And because biases can be just underneath the surface, the person cannot even realize that they're biased or that they're colorist. Example, in the last couple of years, I've had conversations, I know, with our son about colorism, because without putting a name to it, you do not know that you're even sometimes doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Not that he has done it, but I noticed that friends of his have done it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you just listen to a conversation, not eavesdropping, just paying attention when they're in the same room with you, mm-hmm. and they're conversating with someone. And then they may be talking about a girl that they like or whatever. And I've heard his friend say, well, she's too dark. Right? Wow. And then, so, not to interrupt their conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Let them have their conversation, but take note. And then when you have a moment to pull them aside, have the conversation with him about that conversation. Like, what led to that? Well, how do you feel about that? See where his head is at. And then explained colorism to him and what that is. Because without a name, they don't even know that they're doing it half the time. They think that it's a preference when it's not a preference, it's a bias. Like someone has put it, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To explain that was not a preference, that's a bias. Somewhere along the line, it has been taught to him. Do you know what I mean? To say it in that way. Because most preferences or what you're attracted to are put in positive ways, not in negative ways. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you do not put someone down. You don't say a negative in order to say, oh, that's not my preference. You focus on whatever. You'll say, like for me, for example, if someone said, well, what are you attracted to? I always say, oh, well, I noticed that I tend to be attracted to tall, dark-skinned men. Right? Mm-hmm. I haven't mentioned what I'm not attracted to. Okay. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's an important point.
Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not trying to avoid something. I'm just talking about what I'm attracted to. Mm-hmm. Whereas the language matters. It matters. Mm-hmm. One is anti, the other one is obviously pro.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important point. And a lot of times people won't even realize that they're applying colorism. There's an example of there was a black executive, he's originally Zambian, who worked for a company in Canada and then traveled to Zambia to go and make some negotiations. So his personal assistant was white, mm-hmm. a white woman. So when they went to meetings, people were always addressing his assistant when they were talking in the meetings. Mm-hmm. And the assistant was like, wow, I don't know about that. He does. But she was the white one in the room, and investors and people who lead corporations are usually known to be white people. Mm-hmm. So when they say a black person and a white person together, they assume that the one who has more influence or power or able to make decisions will be the white person. Mm-hmm. So even if they are told that this is his title, this is a title, they automatically just switching, trying to address the white person in the room. Mm-hmm. So this is how deeply rooted it is. And, yeah, people just don't realize they're doing it.
They don't.
No.
That what you mentioned reminded me of an episode of Scandal. I don't know if you ever watched Scandal. Remember?
Yeah, sometimes I did.
Yeah. Well, it's back on. It's back on. It's on Netflix. It's streaming. So I had an opportunity to stream and rewatch it. And there was an episode where Olivia Pope's character, Kerry Washington, who parries Olivia Pope, walks in with her associate who works for her. The character's name is Abby Whelan. And the client immediately goes to shake Abby Whelan's hand, saying, "You must be Olivia." And Abby Whelan is a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pope walks in and says, "No, I'm Olivia. Nice to meet you." And shakes her hand. But the assumption was,
It must be a white woman.
it must be a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they included that bias they wrote it into the script. So,
Oh,
yeah.
on how this bias works. Yeah, it's it's interesting, and of course a problem in our society. So I don't know.
But you yourself haven't ever experienced that personally, or felt like you've experienced it. You're a good-looking guy, though. So
I've seen people talk about it, in your presence. Just talk about a particular individuals that they are better looking just based on that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like a personal attack. So
it does.
So yeah, I've experienced that. People saying, he's better looking. Yeah, based on that. So
yeah, and that's usually how. I don't know if anybody has ever discriminated against me directly because I'm dark skinned, but I have been bullied because of my skin tone versus my lip color, because my lips are pink, and I'm dark skinned. I've specifically been bullied about that when I was younger. And then and again, what you're saying, it'll sound like a personal attack. I've had people have conversations about their preferences or what they say is their preference. And they'll say, like men who will have a whole conversation saying there's no good woman out there. And I'm like sitting there and I know I'm a good woman. Right. And then they start describing what their good woman is. And it's always this light skinned version of fabulousness. And it's like, okay, but you could literally, and I would always think to myself, you could have a good woman sitting right next to you in your face and you would never know it because you have this idea in your head of what you think it should be versus actually talking to people and finding out who they are. Mm-hmm.
Instead of being imprisoned, trying to tell yourself what you like based on how people look.
Right. That's what kills me when the question is, well, when they'll say, what type of characteristics do you want in a person when you watch these dating shows? And they start describing how a person looks and they've never even mentioned how a person acts, their what they think, what their moral virtues are. Mm-hmm. It's like you've already decided what is considered good by, I think if you've decided what is good or bad by looks, you've lost already.
Yeah, a lot.
Because you've narrowed it down.
Mm-hmm. That is, it is a limitation that plays against you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this was a good conversation.
No, thank you so much for having me here.
And thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow on all social media platforms. Have a great day.